This is a Fox News alert. Breaking news from the Paul Manafort trial. As the jury prepares to resume deliberations, they've got some specific questions for the judge. At least one of those may be hinting where this is all heading. We've got a special legal team standing ready. Is the Mueller team losing any sleep tonight? Our legal experts tonight, Andrew Stoltmann is a white-collar crime and securities attorney, and Harmeet Dillon, federal litigator and one-time Justice Department attorney. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Okay.
Happy to be here.
Great to have you guys. You heard what Peter reported there with the attorney, one of the lead attorneys for Manafort, saying we got good news when he asked, what do you make of the question that they're asking about reasonable doubt? He said, I think it's all a good sign. Harvey, what do you make of this when a jury comes back out to the judge and says, we need for you to explain what reasonable doubt is? It's a key to their verdict.
Well, I mean, first of all, I will say that I think it's a folly to take anything necessarily from the questions. Anybody who's experienced knows that jurors will often ask questions, and sometimes you'll predict it's going one way and it doesn't go that way for you. But that said, it is a good sign. That particular question, I think, would weigh in favor of the Manafort team. Some of the other questions, however, I think would portend trouble for the Manafort team, particularly details about the foreign bank account regulations. I think that was one. And then, you know, on the other hand, I think the questions about, hey, what are all these exhibits and what do they relate to? I think that's a bad sign for the prosecution. So I think these questions cut both ways. If I were a smart attorney on either side, I would not be sleeping very well tonight.
Yeah, you can't read too much into it, Andrew, but you know, it's always kind of the feeling that the longer the jury is out, the better it is for the defense. But they're asking some really detailed questions, which makes it sound like this jury is very dialed in. There are 12 members. They've got to be unanimous. They're looking at 18 different counts. What do you make of what we heard from the jury today?
Well, look, I think you have to look at their questions in the totality of what's taken place. You had a judge who has been borderline hostile to the prosecutors. You have prosecutors who have overreached with respect to what they've charged. They have also put on too many witnesses, introduced too many exhibits. So I think when you look at those questions in the totality of everything that's taken place in this trial, I think the jurors are leaning towards finding not guilty. And look, we don't know what's going on in that deliberation room. But this trial has seemed cursed from the very beginning. I think prosecutors have had unclean hands. I think they charged Manafort because they wanted him to flip and testify against the president. He wasn't willing to do that. And now when they have to prove the case, rather than trying it in the press, they're losing.
Well, I mean, it was pretty speedy. Judge Ellis from the beginning has been cracking on them to keep this thing moving. The defense didn't put anyone on. They were pretty tough in their cross-examination of the prosecution's key witness, Rick Gates, talking about the fact that he had lied, that he had stolen from Manafort, that he had had an affair or affairs, they suggested. But here is what Alan Dershowitz is saying tonight about what the president or his legal team should be hoping for.
This is a little bit about Trump, and I think his biggest hope is, therefore, in Northern Virginia, maybe there'll be one or two jurors who hold out, and possibly that would be a hung jury. That would be a defeat for the Mueller probe.
Well, and Andrew, before the trial even started, during some of the pretrial stuff, the judge had said, this is something to the effect that we know what this is about, that you're trying to get to Mr. Manafort so you can actually try to set up some kind of impeachment or try to get to the president. But today, my understanding is, or at least in giving instructions to the jury, he said, disregarding the suggestion that what the Mueller team is doing here is political, will the jurors be able to separate the two?
I don't think so. I mean, look, these jurors read the papers, they watch the news, they're dialed in. And like I said earlier, this judge has been openly hostile towards the prosecutors from the very beginning. So I think the greatest fear for Mueller and his team is that if they don't convict in this case, this is going to embolden other defendants who are contemplating cooperating with Mueller against the president to basically tell him, get lost. And I think it's going to take the wind out of Mueller's sails. I think it's really going to be a problem. This case is a surrogate, a proxy for what's taking place in D.C. between Trump and Mueller, and it'll be fascinating to see what happens.
Yeah, and again, there is a trial here in Washington on completely different charges that's going to happen in September as scheduled, regardless of what happens with this jury. Tomorrow, we go into a second day of deliberations, and we will watch for that verdict. Harmeet and Andrew, thank you both.
Thank you.